Hey folks, how you all doing? So today I thought I would count down Neil Young's 20 best albums, or my favourite 20 albums by Neil Young. Soundtrack albums are included in it, studio albums. Only Neil Young. I'm not counting Buffalo Springfield, Stills Young, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Just Neil Young, Crazy Horse, whatever the variations of Neil Young there are. So yeah, studio albums and soundtrack albums. There's a soundtrack album in here. So over his career since 1967, he's released 57 what you'd call studio albums, I guess. So 46 studio albums under his own name. There's 4 soundtrack albums, 3 Buffalo Springfield studio albums, 1 Stills Young band album, and 3 Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young albums. Originally, I was going to rank all of his studio albums, but I realised that I don't really like much of what he's done over the last 12 or 13 years. In fact, of those probably 10 or 11 albums over the last 13, 14 years, I could probably pick enough songs to make one half decent album off all those albums, as he appears to be more worried about quantity as opposed to quality over the last decade and a half. That said, one of the albums in this list does come from 2018, so he does still make the odd album that's worth it. I also haven't purchased his last 4 albums simply because I don't like the quality of the work he's doing lately. I'll get them when they are on in bargain bins, discount bins, whatever, half price sales, but not full price. There are 2 albums that just missed the cut, so I'll just show those first, the 2 that didn't make the cut. First up, I've got Are You Passionate, which was released in 2002. This is his soul R&B album. His backing band on this album is Booker T and the MGs. It's a really, really good soulful album, R&B album by Neil Young. Worth it if you get a chance to listen to it. And also the other one that just made the cut was the Grammy Award winning album from 2010, Leno's. This one is basically just Neil Young with his electric guitar, loads of feedback, and Daniel Lanois produced this album, thus the title name, Leno's. It's just a play on words, but another very, very good album. Just missed my cut. So let's get into my top 20 favourite Neil Young albums. At number 20, I have 1988's This Note's For You. It's quite a jazzy sort of big band type album for the most part. There's nothing bad on this album. It is a good album. And if you understand Neil Young, you'll know that he is eclectic and goes out of his comfort zone every now and then. But yeah, 10 Men Working, Married Man, and probably This Note's For You. Really, really good album. At number 19 on my list, 2009's Fork in the Road. This is a concept album. Neil Young has a love for motor vehicles. It's a big thing he works on and loves, and he sings a lot about them. But this is a whole album about songs about motor vehicles, either cars he's owned, cars he's loved, cars he's working on. There's a few songs on here about finding other ways to fuel cars, i.e. getting rid of fossil fuels and using oils and other sort of things like that. A project Neil Young spent a lot of money on back around that time as well. Very, very good rock album from Neil Young. Number 18 on my list, 1994's Sleeps with Angels. Yeah, really good album. Sort of a rock album. It's a bit R&B as well, bit soft rock. There's a couple of heavier tracks on it. Piece of Crap is one of them, which technically really is just a piece of crap with Crazy Horse, but it is a good album nonetheless. Western Hero is a really good track. Prime of Life, My Heart, really, really good album. Number 17 on my list, we have 1989's Freedom. This was his comeback album of sorts after a period of below par albums made in the 1980s, either from the Reprise album label, or the Geffen label. Yeah, just a really, really good album. Rockin' in the Free World was his comeback single. He really blew it apart. Made a big comeback with this. There is a cover song on this on Broadway, the old Drifters song. Really, really good guitar driven version of On Broadway, but a very, very good album nonetheless. At number 16 on my list, we go back to 1975. All of his albums from the 1970s, apart from the Stills Young Band album, do make my list, by the way. We have Zuma. I guess you'd call it an Americana album of sorts, of what they would now call Americana anyway. There's Americana, there's country, there's folk, there's rock, and it does contain one of his greatest songs ever in Cortez the Killer. At number 15 on my list, another Americana type album, American Stars and Bars. Just a great country / Americana / rock album. This album does contain my favourite Neil Young song of all time in Like a Hurricane. Great, great album. Number 14 on my list, we go to 1978, Comes a Time. Again, another Americana sounding album. You'd call it Americana, I guess. There's bits of soft rock, country, folk, etc. And yeah, I guess Comes a Time was the hit single off this, along with Four Strong Winds, which was a cover as well. It's not actually a Neil Young song. Yeah, Field of Opportunity, Human Highway, Look Out for My Love. Great, great songs. Oh, a lot of Loves on here, the original version of that. Who had the cover version of that? I can't remember. I'll just check that. She actually appears on the album. Yeah, can't think right now. But yeah, his original version of yeah. Oh, Nicolette Larson. Sorry, Nicolette Larson had a hit single with A Lot of Love, but this is the original version by Neil Young. Nicolette Larson actually does a few backing vocal duties on this album. At number 13 on my list, this one will probably surprise a lot of people, I've got Harvest. Yeah, it's a good album. Nothing bad. Again, there's nothing bad on any of these albums, actually. I just see this album split into two parts. It's a country folk album on one side, and it's full of lush orchestrations, basically, for the other half of the album. I don't see as these songs actually blend well together, orchestration songs plus country songs, and for that reason only, this album is way down at number 13, but it obviously does contain some of his greatest and best known songs. Heart of Gold, Old Man, Needle and the Damage Done. Great, great album. At number 12 on my list, I've gone to 1995, Mirorball. This is the album he did with Pearl Jam as his backing band. Neil Young was very heavily into grunge. He was a huge, huge fan of Nirvana and Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, etc. But then again, he is cited as being the original grunge artist. They've sort of traced grunge back to 1968-69 with his first couple of solo albums, so it's no wonder he eventually got a grunge band to appear as his backing band on the album. Eddie Vedder's not on this album, by the way. Obviously he's the singer, but it's the rest of Pearl Jam. Great, great album. Number 69, speaking of going back to the 1968-69 period. At number 11, I have his second solo album. Everybody knows this is nowhere. Yeah, Cinnamon Girl is one of those songs that sort of cited as being grunge, but this is a great album. Great album. Down by the Rivers on this one. Requiem for the Rockets, Cowgirl in the Sand, obviously Cinnamon Girl, and the title track, absolutely brilliant. The only problem I have with this album is that it seems to be stuck in the late 60s sort of production, sort of like a lot of albums from mid 1980s have an 80s sound. This has a late 60s production sound. It does sound a bit stifled at times, but the songs shine through beautifully. Now we're heading to my top 10. At number 10, I have 2007's Chrome Dreams 2. He never officially released a Chrome Dreams album back in the day. He had recorded one in the late 1970s but shelved it. It did get released a couple of years ago, the original Chrome Dreams album, which was shelved. But yeah, a great album. Yeah, it's just full of all these lengthy guitar solo driven rock songs. There's a couple of country songs on here, a couple of acoustic songs. It's just absolutely brilliant. This is Neil Young at his best. Some of his finest production is on this album as well. Great stuff. At number 9 on my list, I have what year was this one? 2003, Greendale. Not a big seller at the time. It was a big flop. The album's a concept album. It's about 3 families in the mythical town of Greendale. A young boy accidentally shoots a cop. The media come to the town. There's a frenzy about it, and the whole album relates to all this influx of people and how they've disrupted the town, plus 3 families that were involved with the shooting. There's the cop's family, his family, and yeah, just the influx of visitors. So it's a really in-depth album. It does need to be listened to in one sitting. If you get the, I think this is the, I think I've got the deluxe version here. Yeah, I have. I've got the deluxe version, so it's got the DVD in it. So what's happening? The DVD, they're playing the songs live in the studio, and there's a screen on the back, and there's actually a movie playing of the actual Greendale songs. So you're actually watching it plus watching them play at the same time. Great. If you can get this deluxe or double disc edition, well worth it in my opinion. Number 8 on my list. I don't know, this would surprise a lot of people, I guess. We go to 2018 for Paradox. So this was actually a home movie that Neil Young made at the time. So there's songs on here, there's bits of snippets of old songs, there's bits of instrumental. So it's not really as an album, but it's what you call experimental rock. It's experimental. A lot of it's experimental. There's stuff that's a bit psychedelic on this, but there's a few, as I said, there's a few songs, there's a few little instrumental snippets and pieces, a few little half songs, and I think the Promise of the Real are on here as well, which is Luca Nelson, which is Mika and Luke Nelson, which are Willie Nelson's sons. So yeah, great album and absolutely fantastic cover. This is one of my favourite album covers of all time. But you're either going to love this album or you're going to hate it. Me, I absolutely love it. Number 7 on my list, we go to 1970, After the Gold Rush. 3 or 4 years ago, this album would have been top 2 for sure, but top 2 or 3 anyway. But yeah, this probably slated as being one of the first Americana albums. Absolutely brilliant. It's the album that came out just before Gold Harvest, and the songs about the environment. It's just a great album. Lots of acoustic stuff, folky stuff, a couple of rock type songs, but mainly country come folk songs. Next up, number 6 on my list, 1974, On the Beach. Part of his Ditch trilogy after the whole success he had with Harvest. So that was Tonight's the Night, this one. And Time Fades Away. Time Fades Away was a live album. But yeah, this is really good. This has got a bit of reggae sounding stuff on it, bit of rock. Yeah, Walk On, See the Sky About to Rain, Revolution Blues, which was actually written from his time that he spent in Topeka Canyon, when he actually went there and met the Manson family back before they were psychopaths, I guess, and just reciting stuff and what happened to them. And but it's just a really, really good album. Motion Pictures, For the Turnstiles, and Ambulance Blues. Great, well polished, well made album. Number 5 on my list, I have Harvest Moon. Often slated as his follow up to Harvest. It's not really, but yeah, he was thinking about Harvest when he did make this album, I guess. Unknown Legend, Harvest Moon title track, From Hank to Hendrix. It's just a great folky Americana country sounding album. Weakest track on here is probably Old King, about his dog, or a dog, but nonetheless fantastic album, and certainly up there amongst fans along with Harvest for most fans. Next up at number 4, we head into the big 4 now for me. We go to 1975, Tonight's the Night. This song, most of these songs on here were actually recorded live. They were taken back to the studio, overdubs were added, bits and pieces were added. It's a cocaine and alcohol drenched album. Neil was high at the time. He was pissed the whole time. A couple of people he knew had died of overdoses of heroin, etc. at that time. He was on a downward spiral, and the way he sings these songs with such raw angst and emotion is just absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's probably the most un-Neil album in my list of 20, but it's just so raw and ragged. You need to go listen to it. If you've never heard this one, you need to go listen to it. Masterpiece, in my opinion. Next up at number 3, we go to 1979, Russ Never Sleeps. Just like Tonight's the Night, this is a live album for the most part. The crowd, noise of the crowd, the clapping, the cheering, etc. were edited out, but you can hear it before and after songs every now and then because it wasn't edited perfectly. But yet some of his finest songs were on this album. Hey Hey, My, Into the Black, and My Hey Hey, Out of the Blue bookend the album. One's acoustic, one's a heavy grungy rock. You've also got Pocahontas on here, Powderfinger, Welfare Mothers, Sedan Delivery, Ride My Llama, Thrasher. Absolutely brilliant. This is Neil Young. Some of his greatest songs on this album for sure. They stand up with anything by any other artist. Number 2 on my list, we go to 1990, Ragged Glory. This was the album that came after Freedom, and he absolutely bleached it with this album. This is probably his heaviest, dirtiest, grungiest, hardest rocking album of his career. It stands up to anything. It's basically a grunge album. It stands up to anything that any grunge band ever did. In fact, surpassed it. Absolutely brilliant. Country Home, Fucking Up, White Line, Over and Over, Farmer John, which is a cover version of an old country-ish song from 1950s, 60s. There's a couple of slower songs at the end, Love and Only Love, but that's still got rip-roaring bloody guitar solos in that. Just Ragged Glory. The title sounds up the album perfectly. It's ragged. And my number 1 Neil Young album of all time, 2006's Prairie Wind. Neil Young just had an aneurysm, brain aneurysm at this time. He was lucky to survive it. He had complications after it. Was very lucky to survive that also. His father was dying back in Canada. And so this album is a collection of songs that he wrote to look back on his childhood, fond memories of his childhood, and face his own mortality. Basically, it's a really, really well put together album. The finest lyrics of his career are put in this. It's just a pastiche of painting. He's painting pictures and images and stories. It's absolutely incredible. You sit there and you just read the lyrics, and you put yourself down by the rivers and the creeks and the streams and in the cornfields and all the stuff that he sings about here. It's just absolutely brilliant. Every song on here. If you want to see or hear this song live, get his hang on a sec, I'll just get it. I probably should have got it first, but I'll get it now. This DVD, it's a concert movie, Heart of Gold. It was recorded at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. Most of this album is on this, plus there's stuff from Harvest Moon. A lot of his folky stuff from Harvest is on there as well. Basically, it's an album, it's a movie recorded live from all songs that he had purely and solely recorded in Nashville. It's absolutely brilliant. One of the greatest concerts of all time, in my opinion, if you want laid back country sounding Neil. Emmylou Harris is on there as backing singer as well. He's got a full 10-member band, etc. But yeah, this is Neil Young's greatest album, in my opinion, lyrically, vocally and musically. Absolutely incredible stuff. Anyway guys, sorry to bore you. Let me know in the comments section below, are you a fan of Neil Young? I know a lot of people don't like Neil Young because of his whiny voice. I get that, I understand it. I used to be like that. What are your favourite Neil Young albums? Let me know in the comments section below, folks. Till next time, stay safe, take care. All for now, catch you around and bye.